In the 1970s, computers were nothing like the devices we use today. Most people never saw one. Most people never touched one. Computers were expensive machines owned by governments, universities, and large corporations. They occupied entire rooms and required specialized training to operate. For ordinary people, the idea of owning a computer seemed almost absurd. Yet inside a research center in Palo Alto, California, a group of engineers was quietly working on a very different future. The laboratory was called Xerox PARC. PARC stood for Palo Alto Research Center. Today, very few people recognize the name, but many of the technologies that define modern computing were born inside its walls. Xerox was already a successful company. It dominated the copier industry and generated enormous profits. Because of that success, Xerox could afford to invest in long-term research. PARC became a place where engineers were encouraged to experiment with ideas that had no immediate commercial value. The researchers were not asked to improve next year's products. They were asked to imagine the next 20 years. It attracted some of the brightest minds in computer science: scientists, programmers, engineers, visionaries. Many believed that computers would eventually become personal devices used by millions of people. At the time, this sounded unrealistic. Most executives viewed computers as business tools. The idea that ordinary families would one day own computers seemed far-fetched. But inside PARC, that future was already taking shape. And over the next decade, the researchers would create technologies that would influence nearly every computer, smartphone, and network in the modern world. One of the most remarkable projects to emerge from Xerox PARC was the Xerox Alto. To modern eyes, the Alto looks surprisingly familiar. It had a screen, a keyboard, a graphical display, windows, and a small pointing device called a mouse. In the early 1970s, this was revolutionary. Most computers still relied on text commands. Users typed instructions and waited for responses. The Alto offered a completely different experience. Instead of memorizing commands, users could interact visually. They could move information around the screen, open files, edit documents, navigate menus. The machine felt intuitive. Today, these features seem ordinary, but at the time, they represented a radically different vision of computing. The Alto was not a theoretical concept. It worked. Researchers used it every day. Many historians consider it the first truly modern personal computer. Yet almost nobody outside PARC knew it existed. The company had built a machine years ahead of its time. The challenge was not technological. The challenge was organizational. The people building the future understood its importance. The people managing the company often did not. This gap between invention and recognition would become one of the defining themes of Xerox's story. The Alto was only one part of a much larger story. Inside Xerox PARC, researchers developed an extraordinary collection of innovations: graphical user interfaces, icons, windows, Ethernet networking, laser printing, object-oriented programming. Many of these ideas became foundations of modern computing. Today, it is difficult to imagine computers without them. At the time, however, these technologies appeared experimental. Researchers saw enormous potential. Executives often saw expensive research projects. One of PARC's greatest achievements was changing the relationship between humans and computers. For decades, computers demanded that people adapt to machines. PARC proposed the opposite idea. Machines should adapt to people. Computers should be visual, friendly, accessible, intuitive. This philosophy would eventually reshape the technology industry. Visitors who toured the laboratory frequently left amazed. Some immediately understood what they had seen. Others dismissed it. History would be shaped by which group they belonged to. The future was already visible inside the laboratory. The question was who would recognize it first. In 1979, Steve Jobs visited Xerox PARC. The visit has become one of the most famous moments in technology history. Jobs was shown demonstrations of technologies being developed inside the laboratory. He saw graphical user interfaces, windows, icons, and the mouse. Years later, Jobs would describe the experience as a revelation. According to several accounts, he was stunned by what he saw. To many observers, these technologies appeared interesting. To Jobs, they appeared inevitable. He immediately understood that computers would eventually move beyond specialists and become products for ordinary people. The implications were enormous. Apple did not invent the graphical interface. Apple did not invent the mouse. But Apple recognized their commercial potential. That distinction is critical. Innovation alone is not enough. An invention must become a product. A product must reach customers, and customers must adopt it. Jobs understood that chain. Many others did not. The researchers at PARC had built the future. Jobs saw how to bring the future to the world. The influence of Xerox PARC soon became visible. Apple launched the Lisa. Later came the Macintosh. Graphical interfaces entered the mainstream. The mouse entered the mainstream. Personal computing entered the mainstream. Microsoft followed a similar path. Windows eventually introduced many of the same concepts to hundreds of millions of users around the world. The ideas created inside Xerox PARC were transforming the industry. Yet Xerox remained largely absent from the revolution it helped begin. The company continued focusing on the businesses that had made it successful: copiers, printers, office systems. Meanwhile, the personal computer market exploded. Entire industries emerged. Fortunes were created. Technology giants were born. The future envisioned inside PARC was becoming reality. But much of the value was being captured elsewhere. Xerox did not fail because it lacked innovation. If anything, Xerox may have been too innovative. The company employed brilliant engineers, funded ambitious research, and produced some of the most important technological breakthroughs of the 20th century. The problem was not invention. The problem was execution. The people building the future recognized its significance. The organization around them often did not. Success shaped Xerox's assumptions. The copier business was profitable, predictable, comfortable. It was easier to focus on what already worked than on opportunities that seemed uncertain. This pattern appears repeatedly throughout business history. Yahoo, Nokia, Blockbuster, BlackBerry. The future rarely announces itself. It usually arrives quietly, looking incomplete, looking unimportant, looking easy to dismiss. By the time everyone agrees it matters, the opportunity is already gone. The most dangerous moment is not when the future is missing. The most dangerous moment is when the future is sitting directly in front of you, and you fail to recognize it. That is the unspoken system. History often remembers the companies that commercialize ideas. It does not always remember the companies that create them. Yet, without Xerox PARC, the modern technology industry might look very different. The future was invented there. Someone else simply took it to the world.